this is a very interesting and I actually kind of feel really bad for the guys on how it went down in the end, because really, for everything that it sounded like, this was not how the end was supposed to go, and there was some technical glitches. I mean, it's technically, wrestling is live theater, and whenever you're going to use special effects within live theater, you could have some problems that you're going to have to deal with. In this case, since they are not running the same script every night, and every night is different, I don't know if a backup plan should have been in place to, if something went bad, that they hit the backup. They've basically hit the backup like John Moxley hit the backup 3 minutes after they went off air. So they kind of covered that there. And of course, once Dynamite hits, I'm sure we're going to have plenty of kind of like filling in to make this all make a lot more sense. But we're talking about the ending of AEW Revolution, where basically the ring was supposed to explode, but it looked more like Gilbert sparklers than anything else. What do you think about this?
Yeah. Here's my thing. If we're going to jump right to the elephant in the room, I'll tell you this. Full credit to Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley for what was actually really a good match. It was, if this is your cup of tea, barbed wire baseball bat death match, then you probably really like this. And I actually really like this because it was reminiscent of death matches, not of, the current era of light tubes and just complete gore, but it really reminded me of something from the 80s, and I loved it. Even down to the ring attire, honestly, worn by both men, it felt very 80s. Omega was in a pair of old jeans and a tank top. I thought that it was a lot of fun. Of course, we had the obvious and very unfortunate non-explosion that occurred. Usually you don't want things to end in an explosion, but we really, really wanted an explosion and didn't get it, unfortunately. I have two issues here. Well, and it's an either-or situation. Either you get Bryce Remsburg back in there, call an audible, grab Eddie and be like, hey, like, we're okay. And it's like, weird, what happened? And then the storyline is, hey, Omega can't, build an exploding ring for crap, to quote Jon Moxley a couple minutes after the show went off the air. Or the other thing to do is now you have to explain why Eddie sold, right? Because Eddie sold it like a nuke went off, and it's not his fault because he, from the end of the show, covered Jon Moxley, had his head down like this, and he didn't see what happened. So for all him and Moxley know, obviously something didn't go quite right, but it definitely didn't go well. It went wrong, to be totally honest. So really just a weird situation overall. We'll talk more about it.
Yeah, so, I think an audible probably should have been called. Of course, we do have the problem that both Moxley and Kingston did not see it because Kingston was covering his head and covering Jon Moxley's head, so they didn't see what happened, and we have some... I'm sure they can fill these in. I can come up with some fill-ins right off the top of my head anyways, so we can talk about it at the end of the show. But I think another theme throughout this pay-per-view should have been under-promise, over-deliver, instead of over-promise and under-deliver. So one of the promises was, a high-level Hall of Fame worthy signing to AEW, and of course this just throws everybody into a frenzy on, well, who could that possibly be? And really, if it was anybody short of Brock Lesnar, CM Punk, or Ronda Rousey, or Becky Lynch, they were going to be unhappy. I don't think there was any way we could have possibly had everybody happy unless it was one of those 4 people. So I think this is an overpromise, but not saying that Christian Cage is not a good surprise, but an unannounced surprise would have made it so much bigger.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I disagree a little bit on the whole Hall of Fame thing. I do think actually that Christian is big enough of a name, having spent time in both WWE and TNA, and actually having, from what I understand, I haven't watched all of it, but from what I have seen, kind of a good run in TNA, and did pretty well there for himself. So I really do think that he is of the caliber that I expected. But again, like you said, they hyped it to the point where if it hadn't been, Angle, Brock, those are a couple names I heard thrown out there, CM Punk, like you said, Ronda. I think you're exactly right that people were disappointed because it wasn't to the caliber that they hyped it to. But I also wasn't disappointed. I actually really like the idea of Christian Cage now that I've had time to think about it. When he first came out, I wasn't sure how I felt, but I'm definitely warming up to the idea. And I actually thought his entrance and his music sounded really great. And he's in great shape, obviously. So he's not so old that I'm mad about it. I had mentioned that if it was an older guy, I'd probably be pretty upset. But I think he's still got some time in the ring that he can go. So, and like I said, he's in great shape. So I'm actually pretty happy with the Christian Cage reveal, but I can understand maybe why some people are less than thrilled.
I mean, Christian is totally Hall of Fame worthy. I have no complaints on that end. It really, in my mind, I was always more of a fan of Christian anyways. I think he's a better worker than Edge, and I think he's a better talker than Edge. But he always got the short end of the stick from WWE ever since really they split up in the early 2000s. And then Edge was always the kind of golden boy where Christian was always tossed to the side. So I can see why he came to AEW anyways, because legends get treated like crap over on the other world. So I don't think he really wanted to retire when he was kind of forced to retire, and then of course there's no outlet for him to wrestle where he actually wanted to. And now with the huge turnaround of the business in general, if AEW didn't exist, I could see him possibly doing some stuff with New Japan. If AEW didn't exist and New Japan grew to the level it is today within the North American consciousness.
Right.
All right, so let's get into this. You are listening to the That's Wrestling podcast. We are live on Twitch as the preferred platform these days because YouTube somehow thinks that a person, just a wrestler on a thumbnail, is nudity, and Shaq's arm is apparently nudity last week. That's why they pulled us off the stream midstream. So we'll see if we survive the entire stream over on YouTube, but head over to Twitch. If you're listening to this as a podcast, we do the show live over there. Comments, questions, feedback, you can send those to eric@thatswrestling.com. If you are watching this on YouTube or Twitch and want the podcast version, you can snag that at all your favorite podcast apps, plus thatswrestling.com. You can grab the RSS feed there. Follow us on Twitter @thatswrestling1. Caleb actually tweeted like a madman last night during the show, so that's a plus. And head over to your favorite podcast app, give us a review, all that fun stuff. Throw a thumbs up on the video if it's still available. And so back with me tonight, I have Caleb Johnson. Unfortunately, Dave could not make it because he has moved to the West Coast, and even at 8:30 it is only 5:30 there and pushing the edge of his workday, and he got stuck at work, so he's still at work, so he couldn't join us.
Rough. Our condolences to Dave. I'm sure Dave would rather be here reviewing AEW with us. But yeah, I'm very excited to be here, and I did try to get as tweety as possible. We had a couple of folks interacting with us, which was a lot of fun. Jay on Twitter, if you're listening. Thank you very much for actually tweeting with me yesterday. That was fun, but we got some good interaction. Really trying to spread the scope and the scale of our Twitter game. So I definitely want to work on that a bit. But I thought we had a lot of fun, honestly. And yeah, to your point. Oh wait, where was I going with that? I don't remember. You just said something that made me think of something.
Christian. Okay. I like Christian better.
Shoot, you said something great, and I was like, "Ooh, I gotta mention that." And then I got distracted.
You were tweeting like a madman.
No,
was it something I said before the intro?
No, it was right a minute ago.
Oh,
no, but I forget. But we'll get to it. We're gonna talk about everything tonight. But yeah, overall, just comments before we dive into match by match. I honestly did think yesterday was a good show. I think it's going to leave a bad taste in some folks' mouths, and I can understand why. Notably, I think for the two things we've talked about, some people being disappointed by the signing of Christian, and everyone universally, including those working for AEW, disappointed by that non-explosion. But otherwise, to be honest, I really enjoyed almost all of the matches. And there were a couple subtleties that I thought were really, really good. We got an apparent heel turn and a apparent face turn from what I can tell. So I'm thrilled to talk about those as well.
Lots of tension between a lot of teams as well. And
correct.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us. Jay is actually live over on Twitch, and Daxter's has joined us over on YouTube so far. So
let's go.
Got a couple people. All right. So let's get into this show here, and we'll start off with the pre-show because one of the biggest surprises of the night happened right on the first match on the pre-show. And this match was supposed to be Britt Baker and Rebel versus Rhio and Thunder Rosa. And even before I think even starting on Wednesday, Rebel was trying to get out of this match. She was clearly faking a leg injury. She came out with a crutch and just hobbling. So Britt says that Tony wouldn't even accept her doctor's note that she wrote herself, which I thought was funny. And that wasn't good enough. And apparently Rebel managed to convince the AEW doctors, or I think it was the Jacksonville Jag. I think she said it was the Jags doctor. So Britt says, well, I found a replacement, and out comes Maki Itoh.
Yes.
So, huge surprise. Everybody wanted Maki Itoh to come to AEW, and we get her here first thing. She's doing her singing and flipping everybody off, and it's just hilarious.
Yep. I tell you what, we'll talk more here, but in the first two matches tonight, pre-show match and the first match of the night, I think halfway through the first match, we had like 6 or 7 middle fingers thrown. And I was like, I was watching with a friend, and he was just like, oh, wow, another middle finger. He's like, I guess I can get away with it on pay-per-view. I said, I guess so. But Maki Itoh threw at least 3 or 4 in this match. I was so happy to see Maki Itoh, and obviously she's gained a following for some of her Twitter shenanigans, I guess you'd say. But I'm really, really excited to see her here. At first, it was but I guess her wrestling in this match, it felt pretty Joshi, which is, if it's your cup of tea, cool. If it's not, cool. There were some spots that just felt a little bit over-exaggerated. But about halfway through this match, it really turned on. And there were a couple moments, I'm sure we'll go through here, but there were a couple moments that I was just like, dang, Maki Itoh is like really, really good. And I really enjoyed her throughout.
So Daxers wants to have somebody explain the hype of Maki Itoh. Do you want to touch on that?
Sure. Maki Itoh is obviously a Joshi star from Japan. And really the big hype with her is how vulgar she is on Twitter is kind of part of it. It's not just the vulgarity though. It's also, Joshi stars oftentimes, especially baby faces, are given a very, like, think of Rhio. Rhio is very baby face. Like, part of her gimmick is basically just that she's a good person. And she comes out and she blows kisses and she smiles and waves. And Maki Itoh is almost like a satire of a babyface Joshi star, where she comes out and she sings her theme and stuff, but like also while flipping people off. And she's kind of like this like heel with this cute smile kind of. And she, you know, everyone thinks that she's, you know, cute and harmless, but she's actually like really, I don't want to say hardcore, but she's just very like metal almost. So just imagine the pop star entrance. But if you noticed in her entrance, like it was like neon skulls. Like that's kind of the idea, is that she's kind of like a metal chick, still doing the pop, but like also just doing like hard headbutts. And part of her gimmick as well is that she just has a really hard head, so she does a lot of headbutts. She like knocks on her own head kind of, which is kind of funny. But I think a lot of the charm also again comes from Twitter and her interactions with people. Like Jim Cornette has come out and said how much he hates her, and she just trolls him right back, so that wins her the hearts of a lot of AEW fans already. That's pretty much Maki Itoh. She did not go very far in this women's tournament, and I think people were kind of disappointed by that because she, you know, is very popular in Japan as well. So I think people were expecting her to just go a little further, and this was kind of a nice payoff for the hardcore fans.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like a comparison, if like who is like the most clean cut like pop star that I could I'm thinking like like really like before she started doing a ton of acting, Mandy Moore. If like Mandy Moore became like the most vulgar person out of nowhere, that would be like the person, because she was like she was a pop star before she became a wrestler too. So this would be like Mandy Moore turn hardcore wrestler.
I should have mentioned that. Yeah, Maki Itoh actually was a pop star. Like she actually like sang and did all this different stuff in Japan and was part of a girls group, I believe. Yeah. So that like she actually has credibility here as a singer. But yeah, you're right. If Mandy Moore, there was like a backstage video of her and she was just like swearing up a storm at someone, all the people who would have completely fallen in love with her even more, like that's Maki Itoh, but in Japan.
So we have Britt Baker, Maki Itoh versus Rhio and Thunder Rosa. Britt and Rhio started off, but not a ton comes out of it. Itoh and Rosa tag in. Itoh throws up the double birds to everybody. She this is a funny spot that I've seen her do. I've only seen her wrestle twice, and she's done it twice. She got hit after getting hit with a few forearms, and she starts like crying, like, and then she just like stands up. She's like still crying, and Rosa's confused, and she just stomps on Rosa's foot and gives her the finger. Rosa gets a tag out to Rhio, and she works over Itoh a bit. Rhio and Rosa work over Itoh for a while. Britt pulls Rhio to the outside, beats on her for a little bit. Itoh misses a Kokeshi and tags out, and then back and forth we go. Rebel gets involved here and there. She's clearly not injured. Rosa finally gets a piece of Britt. She hits that super stiff drop kick in the corner. She's gonna re-break Britt's nose at some point, as if this feud continues on, which it looks like it's going to. Yeah. Britt hits a sling blade. Itoh hits the Kokeshi for a 2. Rosa hits a stunner and tags in Rhio. Rhio hits a rising knee. Britt comes back with a super kick. Rosa then hits a super kick of her own. Itoh hits a swinging DDT, and then this was actually a really cool move. Itoh caught Rio's running knee and like rolled backwards through into a single crab. That was a pretty sweet move. And then Rhio gets to the ropes there. Itoh hits a headbutt, but ends up dropping both her and Rhio. We see an air raid crash from Britt. Rosa breaks up that pin, and then Britt and Rosa exchange pin attempts. Rebel tries to interfere. Britt gets run into Rebel, which she gets knocked off the ropes, but a few moments later, Rebel hits Rosa in the back with a crutch, and Britt Baker gets the pin. We have too many women's names that all sound the same here. We got Rhio and Itoh, Rosa, Rhio. Going crazy here.
Yeah, 100%. This match, honestly, so many times have I said that the AEW women's division is, not maybe one of the strongest things on the show. And, how I think that there are certain women who could be elevated and maybe others who are elevated that maybe, and to be honest, they've really done a good job, I think, of sussing out who exactly those people are, because some of the women who were not as polished, you've not seen as much on TV, and not that they don't have potential. It's just, as of right now, maybe they're not the best people to put on your 2-hour show. They killed this match. So, I just want to say, great job to AEW for figuring out their women's division. And honestly, for all the things I've said about the women's division in the past, I'm going to totally flip here. This was under on the card. This should not have been on the buy-in. This should have been a main show, and I would have much preferred to see let me think of a match. Maybe even the Tag Team Casino Royale, honestly, which, did have a lot of storyline development, so I can understand why they might not have wanted to do that. But truthfully, I thought that this match deserved a spot on the main show, especially just after seeing these performances. A surprise for Maki Itoh would have been great on the main show. There's just a lot of things about this show that I think really should have been on this match that should have been on the main card. It was so much fun. And that moment you mentioned too, with Itoh reversing the knee strike, or I think she was going to do kind of like a shining wizard in a sense, and she rolled back into the single leg crab, and I was like, it was so smooth. That's not too much more to say about this, other than I think AEW had a very, very successful night for the women.
Then we go to the main card of Revolution. JR has joined the commentary team. He's sounding really hoarse. Somebody get that guy some tea or something. He powered through, and his voice kind of started to clear up later on in the show, but it was rough for a little while there.
100%. As soon as he started talking, I was like, oh boy, this dude needs some of that lemon tea.
Yeah. So we start off the night as advertised with Chris Jericho and MJF versus the Young Bucks for the tag team title match. And I thought this was pretty funny. You know how the ref grabs the titles and holds them up to the audience in the camera to signify that this is a title match. Well, while Aubrey was holding up both of the belts, Jericho grabs one of them and holds them up himself, like you already won it. And she sneers at him and yanks it back from him. The play between Jericho and Aubrey has been great since day one, when she reffed his first match in AEW, and now Aubrey is always the match, always the ref for Jericho matches.
Right.
Because they're just hilarious together. They brawl immediately. They fight on the outside. We get double dives from the Bucks, double sharpshooters in the ring. Jericho gets hit with the misdirect spear from Matt. We get a hanging double team swanton from the Bucks, where Matt holds somebody kind of propped up on the ropes, and Nick hits the swanton off the top. We get some Wardlow interference on the outside. We have a double team delay vertical suplex from Jericho and MJF. The Bucks come back. They hit a destroyer on MJF. Cheeky Nando's kick, and then the blockbuster powerbomb combo. Is that the Made in Detroit finisher?
Yes, it is. I believe so.
Jericho reverses out of a tombstone, throws on a Walls of Jericho on Nick. Matt tags in, and he ends up getting stuck in the Walls of Jericho as well. He eventually escapes. MJF comes in, makes some headway, but then he starts to taunt the Bucks, doing some crotch chops, and but we end up seeing a code breaker on Nick from Jericho. Wardlow distracts the ref, and Jericho hits Matt in the back with the bat, and MJF hits the heat seeker, but only gets a 2 count. Matt dodges a Jericho splash, and then Nick kicks Jericho in the face, diving cross bodies Matt to the floor on MJF, and Nick to Jericho in the ring. Wardlow holds Nick in place so he can't jump up to do a springboard. Jericho goes for the Judas effect while he's being held. Oh, sorry, this was a different spot. Wardlow is holding Nick in place against the ropes, and Jericho goes for the Judas effect, and he hits it on Wardlow. So Wardlow gets knocked off the ring. We have a massive super kick party from the Bucks. One on an upside down Jericho doing a lion salt. Was not as good as Adam Cole doing the super kick to an upside down Aleister Black. But, BTE trigger from the Bucks. MJF has to break up the pin. We have a super kick party on MJF. He eats like 10 super kicks in a row, and he has like a foot-long drool hanging out of his mouth before they double super kick him. And then they hit the Meltzer driver on Jericho, and the Bucks get the victory. So we are already 0 for 1 on picks here.
Yeah, we were already doomed from the beginning.
Yeah, we're doomed throughout the entire night.
I thought this was a very, very fun match. I really enjoyed it as a hot opener. A great tag team match. Honestly, very... I heard someone mention this, and I totally agree with it. Someone mentioned online that the hot tag spots were not quite as flippy as they usually are. The Bucks had a real sense of like brawling in this match, and I really liked it. I thought that they did a very, very good job. Everyone involved, obviously. The Bucks retaining, I think, is a great choice. It was not my prediction, but I think that it's totally understandable. However, I was a little confused by no Sammy Guevara or Good Brothers. I really expected some sort of schmaz here, and we didn't get it, which, listen, fine by me. I mean, you don't have to smudge all the time. You don't have to smudge at all if you don't want to. But I really expected something here. But it was a clean victory over Chris Jericho. So that was a little unexpected, but it was still a fantastic match. I really enjoyed everyone involved. I thought the number of crotch chops was a little excessive by MJF, but that's his thing. But he really told him to suck it. And he was going for it. But that drool spot was hilarious. So, honestly, I thought this was a really, really fun match.
Yeah, like, I think it was really Jericho, like, came halfway up to a Bucks match, and the Bucks came halfway down to a Jericho match and met in the middle. And we had, like, a nice balance between the two styles where the Bucks didn't go totally crazy, but Jericho didn't rest on his laurels either.
Yes. That's a good way of putting it. I like that.
I think the biggest thing that we need to pick out of here and point out is, one, Jericho was the one to take the pin, and two, Jericho was the one who took Wardlow out of the match, basically.
Yes, 100%. I think that they might turn this and try to say it was Wardlow's fault they lost, but a very, very interesting turn, for sure.
And we'll see in just in a minute. After a couple matches, we'll have some words from Jericho and MJF. So this all could come into play this Wednesday, and we'll see. Next up, we had the Tag Team Casino Battle Royale, which was not a Casino Battle Royale.
Wait, it wasn't?
No, because a Casino Battle Royale is groups of 5.
Oh, that's right. It wasn't Casino. No. It was just a Tag Team Royal Rumble.
Yeah. That's all it was. It was just a Tag Team Royal Rumble. That's weird. Yeah, because they started off with 2 teams, and a new team entered at every 90 seconds instead of 5 teams every 5 minutes with a number 21 wild card at the end. That would be 42 people, but still.
Right. Huh.
Yeah. So it was just a tag team battle, tag team Royal Rumble, and the Natural Nightmares as well as Dark Order 5 and 10 started off. Santana and Ortiz are the next team out. QT Marshall hits a diamond cutter and tosses 5. So 5 is the first eliminated. He got made fun of on BTE this afternoon for being the first one thrown out of the match. Ken comes from behind, tries to eliminate QT, but can't. The Seidels are next to join. Matt hits a Meteora off the top. Hey, the first thing he didn't kill himself falling off, making a Battle Royal entrance. Good on him.
I actually tweeted that, and I was like, oh god, flashbacks.
At least he didn't go for a shooting star, he just went for the Meteora instead, so.
Right.
Stu Grayson, Evil Uno are next to join the party, so we have 3 Dark Order members in there right now. Santana Ortiz toss Mike Seidel. Ortiz hits a powerbomb, or gets hit with a powerbomb from Uno, and then a spinebuster from 10. The Gun Club join Colton Gunn and Austin Gunn. Colton Gunn got like 7 feet of air on the drop kick. He was like a good 2 feet above the ropes. It was insane.
Colton Gunn, for a guy whose name I could not have remembered like a week ago, he looked pretty good in here. I was like, this guy's moving.
He looks so much like his dad.
Have real talent.
He looks so much like his dad at his age.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah. They beat but Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi are the next to join. Matt Seidel got tossed, so the Seidels are gone. Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi join. They beat the crap out of Colton. Varsity Blondes join. They attack Bononi right out of the gate until Cesar gives them a double suplex. Austin hits the Famouser on Peter Avalon, tosses him out. QT eliminates the Gun Club, and because they're members of the Nightmare family, Dustin is mad about this and is exchanging words with QT Marshall, and QT Marshall basically says, F this, gives the finger to Dustin and eliminates himself and spits at Dustin. And interesting there, we have what seems like a makings of a heel turn out of QT Marshall here, especially because he was a little. He doesn't get the recognition he thinks he deserves, and I think that is probably the character that's going to come out of this.
Yes, I totally agree. I thought that was really kind of interesting. I say kind of interesting because I thought the angle was interesting, but I don't think QT Marshall is interesting. I'm sorry, QT. I think QT Marshall is, from what I understand, I think he's really influential backstage with, training and helping along new folks. I think he's obviously with the Nightmare Factory. He's heavily involved with that, and I'm sure is super awesome. But AEW's never really given us a huge reason to really care. He's kind of been a subsidiary character, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was interesting, and a very interesting way of heel turn, essentially, because essentially you're in a battle royale and there's another team in there. Just because you and that other team are part of the same faction, I mean, it's still your team first, right? But Dustin gets mad because they're all part of this Nightmare family. And it's almost like you can kind of see it both ways, but you're kind of like, that guy should be your friend. You maybe eliminate him last, you know what I mean? But he really eliminated him in an opportunistic sort of way. And then the self-elimination I thought was really good. Like, he just jumps off and he's like, well, I'll see you later then, loser. So I really liked it. It was very interesting. But like you said earlier, I mean, there were a lot of things throughout this match with just little subtleties or details. They really kept a lot of storylines going.
Then we have the joining, the Bear Country join, the Bear Country, just Bear Country join. Boulder hits a power slam, power bomb combo on Uno and Grayson at the same time. Bear Country toss Stu Grayson. Jurassic Express join the party. Luchasaurus eliminates Caesar. Ortiz and Garrison. Jungle Boy eliminates Santana. So our pick is gone halfway into this match.
Yeah, they got eliminated way too early. And actually, if Jay's watching us still, I think Jay tweeted something about like sad face. And I was like, 100%. Like, they should have been in much later, even if they weren't winning. Like, I felt like that was a little disrespectful for Proud and Powerful. Also, as a side note, was Top Flight not in this at all?
They were not. So
I'm pretty sure that was my alternate pick.
Our backup picks weren't even in the match. I thought they were supposed to be in the match.
I thought they were too. I don't know if something got changed, but this is also the kind of match where, truthfully, like, if a certain team, one team out of 10 teams that were announced isn't there, like, most people might not even notice.
Yeah,
but I was missing them.
Yeah. Let's see. We have Marco Stunt helps eliminate Uno in the most hilarious fashion. Did you catch this?
Refresh my memory.
So
I'm not sure if I saw.
Uno was out on the apron, but he was like in the middle of the apron, and Marco Stunt does a flying Rana, and he gets released. So Marco releases. Well, I guess technically Uno releases Marco before Uno has even really started moving, and then all of a sudden he no longer has Marco, and he just runs at the post, hits the post, and falls off.
I thought that was, honestly, like I said, I was watching with a friend, and we watched it, and we were like, oh, Marco gave it a try. And then Uno just ran into the post on his own, and we were like, oh, okay. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was kind of like Uno was making sure that Marco got all the way around, so he wasn't going to land on his head once he let him go, because he was going to land on the floor. But then he also forgot, oh crap, I need to start momentum before I let this kid go, but he didn't. And then did you see what he tweeted it, and then he also mentioned it on BT. He's like, the ring was slippery.
No, I didn't see that.
Honestly,
I'm not always the biggest Cornette guy, but now I really, really want to go see whatever Cornette says about that spot, because he hates Marco. And for once, I totally agree. Marco did not have the weight or momentum, and they sold it like he did. But in real life, Marco, Rana's him, quote unquote.
And it wasn't Marco's fault.
No, it wasn't either. But it was definitely just the weirdest elimination, quote unquote.
It was pretty funny. Let's see. We have a Butcher and Blade come in, and at this point, the Dark Order is all gone. And then Jack Evans, who isn't even in the match, he was actually responsible for pulling 10 off the apron. So Jack Evans still doing the dirty work of Matt Hardy interfering with the Dark Order. Dustin Rhodes is eliminated with the help of the Bunny. Private Party join, and we're down to Jurassic Express, Bear Country, Butcher Blade, Private Party, and then all of those teams are complete. SCU joins Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels. Bear Country eliminates Luchasaurus, and the Butcher gets the Butcher right after gets rid of both of Bear Country. They pull the Butcher out and under the ropes, though, and give him a few shots before he gets back into the ring. Pac and Phoenix join. I think Blade and Quinn were tossed somewhere around here. The Beaver Boys join, which that is John Silver and Alex Reynolds, named prior to AEW. So we have we finally have two Dark Order join after 4 of them have already been tossed. Silver drops Christopher Daniels on the ground, and Reynolds gives Jungle Boy a tombstone pile driver on Christopher Daniels. We get a Dark Destroyer on Cassidy, and he gets tossed. We have 4 teams left, but Jungle Boy is the only singles left. So we have Death Triangle, Butcher Blade, SCU, and Jungle Boy. We have Phoenix eliminating Christopher Daniels. Reynolds and Jungle Boy fight on the apron. Reynolds gets tossed by Jungle Boy. Kaz tossed by Pac. Death Triangle, Jungle Boy, and Silver are all that's left. We have Silver and Pac fighting. I want a program between John Silver and Pac.
Oh, yeah. When they came forehead to forehead, it was something, those moments where you're like, I didn't know I wanted that, but now I do. And that's exactly how I felt. I was just like, that was something that if you and I had just been talking, I might not have thought about. But now that I've seen it, I'm like, oh, yes, please. Give me more of that.
So they fight. Jungle Boy and Phoenix fight. Silver almost eliminated, but he survives. Phoenix holds on as well. Silver hits Pac with 1,000,000 kicks, but then is eliminated. So it's just Death Triangle versus Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy ends up low bridging Pac. So now it's down to just Jungle Boy and Phoenix. They chop the crap out of each other. Jungle Boy misses a baseball slide to the outside, so he's on the outside. Phoenix runs and does a flip dive through the top and second rope, and he lands in the front row. One of the refs is thinking that Phoenix eliminated himself. Aubrey comes over and says, no, he went through the middle. So we have that. They get back into the ring. Jungle Boy hits a poison Rana, but Phoenix come back, he hits the rewind kick and then sends Jungle Boy to the floor afterwards. And Death Triangle, Pac and Phoenix get a tag title match against the Young Bucks in the next coming weeks. That should be a banger of a match. Oh, also they announced that Matt and Phoenix are going to have a singles match on Wednesday.
Yes, I'm really excited about this program. And to be honest, if I'd have really thought about Death Triangle before we did our predictions, they might have been up there, although we were pretty much fully on board with the Jericho, Santana, and Ortiz situation. But I really, really like them as the winners, reestablishing themselves as, a proper presence and, having, as I mentioned during our Dynamite review, having their own Tron, their music. I really, really enjoy this. I think that this is a really good thought. And to be honest, Death Triangle doing pretty well. Death Triangle got a tag team match, and Penta did pretty well for himself. He didn't win, obviously, but he did pretty well in the ladder match. So I think that there's some really good potential for these guys moving forward. They've done a really, really great job, obviously, up to this point, though COVID has kind of screwed up Pac and his run a little bit. But I think we're going to get back on form here, and I really expect big things out of this match.
We have a quick backstage with Dasha talking to Paul White. Paul White basically pimps Dark Elevation, and then he gives a hint saying that he doesn't think anybody can outwork the new signee, and that was about it. We go on to the women's title match, and I wrote, so AEW does know how to subtitle Japanese wrestlers. So they had a video package with Shida and Mizunami speaking Japanese, and they subtitled it. Holy crap, why haven't they been doing this for the past 2 years? Driving me nuts.
They actually did the same thing before the main event with Onita.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, they definitely know how to do this. Honestly, I'll tell you this, man. I don't know if you watched any of, the pre-Revolution, on the buy-in,
yes,
the packages they were doing and stuff. But I'm like, where is any of this stuff on Wednesday nights?
Right?
We could cut this together for a minute and just put it up on the big screen. Give us these backstories, man. And I mean, they've done better. We've acknowledged the fact that they're doing better, but they obviously have great people working with their video production. So let's get these packages moving, man, because I really enjoyed the package before this match.
Right. They're always building to these shows. So say they start airing some of these packages 3 weeks out. Take what would be 20 minutes worth of packages, spread them out over 3 episodes of Dynamite, and you got basically your entire, countdown show, just trimmed down a little bit. But I scrolled up to the top and I actually skipped that one paragraph that it said pre-show. These, like usual, are excellent video packages on the countdown show / pre-show. Where the hell are these packages on TV?
Right.
So good call
exactly.
out. Good call out there. But it's okay. And again, right here we have, this is this is probably maybe one in the past 3 months that they've had just a subtitled Shida video. I don't know why they need to do this she should be on the TV all the time, 1-minute packages, subtitle her, and we're fine. I mean, they did the same. There's the same problem with Riho. I mean, we've bitched about this for a year and a half though at this point. But just, oh my god, just let her cut a promo in Japanese, subtitle it, and call it a freaking day.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, this package made me more interested in Shida than anything in the past, like, I don't know, 3-4 months. Like, I think viewers may have noticed during our Dynamite review that this past week that I was kind of meh. Like, I think I predicted Mizunami. Like, I would have thought it's time for a title change because Shida's, honestly, for me, worn a little thin. And just watching this video package, I was like, you know what? I really like this chick. Like, why don't we have more of this, please, on our regular TV show so I don't forget that my champion is actually kind of awesome.
Right? Yeah. So it's Ryo Mizunami versus Hikaru Shida. They actually talk about the training of the two of them and that Hikaru Shida has been trained more in Joshi style, whereas Mizunami was trained more in the strong style. But since that time, they've like role reversed, and Shida is the more strong style type of wrestler, where Mizunami has really taken on some of the Joshi stuff, which got really friggin' annoying in the early part of this match. What?
Oh, I was just saying agreed.
Yeah, so Ryo takes a swing at Shida when they're shaking hands. They exchange a ton of chops. Ryo does Kojima's machine gun chops, but not nearly as fast and with not nearly as gusto behind them. So Shida just looks like a moron standing there taking them. So that was one thing. Taking way too long with Ryo's shenanigans and still being able to hit an offensive move on Shida. Same complaint with I usually have with Emi Sakura. Same thing. It makes her opponent look like an idiot for allowing the offense to happen, and it's just one thing that really annoys me. And what really annoyed me throughout a lot of the Asian bracket, a lot of the Japanese bracket for the tournament. Shida hits a Rana running knee, rising knee strike on the outside. Shida digs under the ring for a chair. She sets it up to do the running, rising, jumping knee that she does, but Ryo catches Shida and throws her into the front row. But back in the ring, Shida tries a stretch muffler. Ryo stands right up out of it and into a leg drop, which I thought was actually a pretty innovative way, because basically her leg was already across the back of Shida's neck, so she was standing and basically just let her weight go with it and smashed her into the mat. I thought that was good. Shida hits a few kicks, head scissors, pulling Ryo into the top turnbuckle, missile drop kick off the top for a 2 count. They fight in the corner. Shida pulls Ryo off the top, hits a crunchy on the stage. Shida hits a outside in suplex for a 2 count. Then we get into a striking exchange where Shida just gives Ryo free shots. So Ryo takes a few of them, but Shida just drops her with one hit. Ryo comes back with some headbutts. Ryo clotheslined Shida a few times. She hits, I believe it looked like a Tenzon driver. I believe it was a Tenzon driver, but I'm not totally sure.
I think that's what
was it?
Yeah, I think they called it a Tenzon driver.
Oh, did they really say it? Maybe I just totally missed it. Maybe I
was miscalculating, but I think you're correct.
Shida hits a running knee but can't follow up. And they're both slow to their feet, but once they stand, they get into a striking exchange. Shida is dropped after 3 unanswered elbows, and then a twisting Uranagi from Ryo. Spear. Ryo goes up top, and she hits the leg drop, but Shida kicks out. Shida rolls through a Falcon Arrow and just pushes Ryo away, hits a rising knee, straight jacket German. Ryo stands right up out of the German suplex and then hits a shot to the back of the head. Shida comes back, hits a Falcon Arrow. Ryo blocks the running knee, and Shida like stops for a second and then basically hits her with a Kamagoye and then a running knee to the back of the head. Shida hits another Falcon Arrow. Rhio kicks out once. Not Rhio. Rhio just kicks out once again. They run at each other from opposite corners. Shida hits a rising knee. And then another knee strike, a roll-up pin attempt from Rhio for a close 2 count. She hits an Enziguri for 2. Shida shrugs off a DDT attempt, hits a running knee again. Rhio kicks out again, and then Shida hits a corkscrew knee strike and finally gets the pin. This match went about 3 minutes too long past the ending.
Yeah. You know what? If we could cut out all of the time that Rhio spent playing to the crowd, and then I think this match would have been great. I think it wore just a little bit thin. But I will say, too, that I thought both women did a very, very good job. I was happy with the title retention. And I also really thought I kind of bit for that near fall there, that roll up on Shida. Mm-hmm. I thought that was it for a second. Like they just had it very well timed. I agree that it was maybe a little long in the tooth, but I think they did a good job for reestablishing, just how credible both of these women are as contenders, and especially Shida as champion. So I was really happy with this result, even though it goes against my prediction. But again, having watched, the video packages and really kind of got my hype level back up for Shida, I think it is the right decision. And now we can move on to a new program and a new challenger. But I do think that, in my opinion, I think we've got 1 or 2 challengers left before we need to make a title switch here.
Yeah, I think it was just the too many false finishes. I'm not sure if there might have been a cross-up on what the finish was, because there was a couple spots where it would have made way more sense to do the finish, because then Shida was like out of moves and just hit a weird corkscrew knee, which that is, she's never used that as a finisher. So I don't know if something happened where Rhio kicked out of what was supposed to be the finish. I'm not totally sure there. And I think the other thing, the problem with all the false finishes is it started coming to a crawl. I think Rhio was kind of blown up at this point. So because she did not help get up for one of the Falcon Arrows, like Shida had to muscle her through. Luckily, right. Shida's super strong. I mean, we've seen her give a Falcon Arrow to Nyla Rose, so she's super strong, but still, it would have been helpful if Rhio helped her up. So I think just the overabundance of false finishes plus Rhio kind of getting blown up and not being able to keep the speed, I think that kind of destroyed a little bit of enjoyment at the end of it here. But other than that, it was a good match. But yeah, I can still go without some of the playing to the crowd and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it just makes your champ / opponent look too dumb. Like sometimes you can get away with like a little bit, you know what I mean? You're kind of like, all right, that's I don't even know how to phrase it, but like sometimes something is believable, let's say.
Right.
And this was unbelievable. Like you just sit there and you're like, she's doing this spot, she's out there in the middle of the ring doing her little miming or whatever, and I'm like, and then she's gonna go back and chop her again, and I'm like, there's absolutely no way. Like we're early in this match. I mean, not deep into the match, and you're doing all this stuff. I don't know. I just couldn't get on board with it. But like I said, I mean, I'm not criticizing the match overall. I thought it was really good, but I can do without some of that antics.
And then post-match, at the time, after it happened, I'm like, what was the point of that? Like, this could have waited until Wednesday. Post-match, Nyla runs out, and she attacks Shida, and then attacks Rhio. Shida saves Rhio from a beast bomb. Britt Baker comes out with Itoh, and they beat up Shida and Rhio. Rebel hits Shida with her crutch, and then Thunder Rosa runs out to make the save. It's like, This really didn't need to happen after this match when I saw it. And really all it was is to set up a 6-woman match on Wednesday of Itoh, Baker, and Nyla versus Shida, Rhio, and Rosa. That's what's coming out of it, but it's like, this really did not need to happen here.
I certainly agree with that. That said, I don't mind the direction. It just feels like, I don't know. It was like you said, it didn't need to happen here, particularly after, a title match. And I've also, and this isn't so much a complaint, but it's kind of funny, I guess. I've never seen something so obviously set up. Like, just the way everyone came out, helping people. I'm like, literally, as soon as they started walking out, I was like, this is a 6-woman tag for Wednesday. Like, I just immediately knew exactly where they were going with it. And they just made it so obvious, like who's on what side. And the way they all stood afterwards with, I think, the heels outside the ring, and everyone's just like grouped up 3v3. And I was like, this is the most obvious setup for any tag match I think I've ever seen, WWE included. It was just so blatant and in your face, which is fine, I guess. But and I'm not offended by the direction they're going. I just think, we didn't need to do it right away.
Also, why was Britt, Itoh, and Thunder Rosa in their gear still when they wrestled an hour and 20 minutes ago?
Because they knew they were going to do an angle. That's my only answer.
Right. I mean, even I could still say okay with Britt and Itoh, but not with Rosa, because Rosa was coming in for a save. I could see Britt and Itoh like, oh, we're gonna beat the crap out of Shida and Rhio after the match.
Right.
They could have planned that, but not for Rosa. Rosa should have been in her street gear.
Yep, I agree with that.
We have Kip Sabian and Miro. They're about to get interviewed by Alex Marvez, but Chucky T and Orange Cassidy were about to be interviewed by Alex Marvez when Kip and Miro come in and attack. Chucky T is thrown through a glass window in a door, and he sliced up his arm pretty good, legit. I think I wrote in the chat, breakaway glass, people.
Yes.
Like that wasn't even tempered glass or anything. It was like legit plate glass. It's like that's very unsafe.
Window glass. I was like, oh gosh. When he went through it, actually, my friend I was watching with Matt was like, oh, that was good. That was real. I was like, yeah, it sure was.
Yeah, it was real.
That was not staged.
Miro and Kip dragged Chucky T to the ring. They had laid out Orange Cassidy on a roadie case that was nearby. Yep. And then we get to the ring, and Miro grabs a microphone and he is yelling at Chucky T. He's giving him he's basically saying, I would have given you a chance. I would have, strapped the rocket to your back and you could have come with me, and you can make this stop. All you have to do is say the word. And Chucky T gets to his knees a little bit, and he's like, hold on. Ring the damn bell. And so they ring the bell. Miro and Kip beat the crap out of Chucky T. Orange Cassidy is nowhere to be found, but eventually he does stumble his way to the ring. Orange Cassidy hits an orange punch on Miro on the outside, and he gets a tag in by Chucky T. Hits a diving DDT on Kip. Kip hits a Falcon Arrow for a 2 count. We get a beach break stomp combo from Orange Cassidy and Chucky T. Chucky T hits a pile driver. Miro breaks up that pin. Miro and Orange Cassidy face off. Orange Cassidy puts his hands in the pockets, hits the weak low kicks, hits a stun dog millionaire and orange punch to Miro. Orange Cassidy stops before hitting the ropes, though, because Penelope had jumped up onto the apron. Miro hits Orange Cassidy from behind, and Orange Cassidy runs into Penelope, knocking her off the apron and into the barricade on the outside. It should be noted at this point, Kip is actually the legal man here. So Miro hits a high kick, runs over and then runs over Chucky T. Kip is out on the outside checking on Penelope for obvious reasons, and Miro is like on the apron yelling at Kip to get back into the ring so he can tag him. So he jumps down and basically throws Kip back into the ring so he can tag. Miro hits a couple kicks, puts on the game over, and submits Chucky T. And then I thought there was going to be some fireworks between Kip and Miro on their way out, since Kip basically was like, I don't give a crap about Penelope, get back into the ring and tag me. But they seemed okay, at least for the moment.
Yes, for the moment. Emphasize on for now. I like Miro in this match, and I like Miro in general, but again, it's just the placement, the booking, everything about his character right now is still a little iffy. But
this was a good piece right here where he did not give a crap about Penelope.
Right, exactly.
So that is going to cause a rift.
A little bit of development here. Yeah, I was real happy about it, truthfully. I like the way it looks. You know what I don't like, and this is just maybe a weird idiosyncrasy for me, but I think that when people give them like a Falcon Arrow type or a power bomb or something like that, when people do that to someone like on a roadie case or on something that doesn't break, it looks less impactful to me, because I'm like, you, instead of dropping them to the ground, you put them down like halfway.
Right.
And
or like an apron bomb.
Right. And then I'm like, yeah, sure. That's why they have to sell it and say, oh, it's the hardest part of the ring. Because otherwise it looks like they just kind of got gently put down, onto something that was the appropriate height.
Right.
And I thought it took Orange a little while to get back out here. I see where they're going with it. But, I mean, this was serviceable. This was fine. And this was the first match of the night for me that I was just like, meh. You know what I mean? I thought everything else was either excellent or good, And this was like, all right, whatever. Like, we needed to do it. It had to kind of, in a sense, forgive me, but it had to get out of the way, essentially. So we got it done, and I hope it's over.
I know, after this match, I wrote, oh my God, we still have 4 matches to go.
Yeah.
But then they flew by like crazy, because I believe Dave put in the chat, he's like, it's 11:30. I'm like, what? So like it flew by after that. So from here on out,
10:30.
Yeah, it went fast. So we had a quick backstage. Alex Marvez is talking to Chris Jericho and MJF about losing to the Young Bucks. Jericho is pissed off that Alex would even insinuate such a thing. Jericho says, but they are soldiers in a war, and sometimes you have to change your plans in the middle of a war. This Wednesday, there's going to be changes made to the Inner Circle, and the Inner Circle is going to have a war council. MJF says, you know what, Chris? A change will definitely make the Inner Circle better. And MJF had a little bit of a glare at Jericho. Jericho was looking towards the camera, so he did not see MJF's face when he was saying this. So you can kind of see the gears turning in MJF's head here.
Oh, absolutely. As I was watching this, I'm like, when was it Marvez said you failed, and Jericho said, I've never failed at anything in my life, and MJF was just kind of giving him a all right buddy, kind of a weird look. And it's definitely like Jericho took the pin in that match for a reason. That was not at all an accident. So I'm really interested to see how this goes.
But I'm curious if that's actually just a misdirect, because you planted the seed in my head when we were talking about it, that they might blame Wardlow for the whole thing.
They might. Yeah. I think that they very well could. But I wouldn't want that to happen, but a Wardlow, face turn and maybe singles run is something we've discussed in the past. But I think that they are going to go, again, my old tried and true mantra, just because something's obvious doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right.
I think that they are going to try to pull the trigger here with the MJF turn.
All right. Well, we'll see how that happens. See how it goes on Wednesday. Next up, we had Hangman Adam Page versus Matt Hardy. Winner gets the loser's first quarter earnings. Some funny stuff played out on BTE afterwards, and I'll talk about it after the match. Hangman clearly in control early, lots and lots of strikes, fighting on the outside. Hangman does a cross body off the permanent railing of the venue to the floor. More strikes on the outside. Hangman then ends up punching the ring post on accident, and Hardy just goes after the hand, crushing it in the ring steps between the rings, between the stairs and the stage, and kicking him. Hangman, he actually even bites his hand. Hangman hits some strikes, hits a Death Valley driver for a 2 count. Hardy hits a twist of fate on the floor, makes Page answer a 10 count. Later on, Hangman hits the moonsault to the floor, crossbody off the top in the ring for a 2 count. We hit the sliding lariat, lifts Hardy up for the dead eyes, but Hardy escapes. Blue Thunderbomb from Hardy for a 2 count. Hangman hits dead eyes, but Cassidy comes out to distract the ref, and Quen is also out there they're on opposite sides from each other, but Hangman takes both of them out, goes for a buckshot lariat, but Matt Hardy hits a side effect and then a twist of fate, and I'm like, oh my god, he's gonna win, but Hangman kicks out, and then all of the Dark Order run out to take out the interfering Private Party. Hangman is out on the apron. All of the Dark Order are standing behind him. He gets knocked backwards off the apron. The Dark Order catch him, prop him back up on the apron. He hits the buckshot lariat on Matt Hardy and gets the win. Post-match, all of the Dark Order get in the ring. Hangman's standing over there in the corner. All the Dark Order are cheering and clapping and everything. Did you see John Silver doing the spreading the money in the air?
Yes.
Gesture. And then so Hangman's kind of looking at him, a little confused, and then a smile comes across his face, and he goes in for a group hug with all the guys. Colt Cabana gives him a couple Dark Order branded beers, and they all leave as a happy friend group.
Yes, I thought that this was a combination. So my prediction was Big Money Matt winning here with interference from Private Party, and then that was going to set up for the, Hangman and Dark Order versus, multi-man tag. But instead, they just combined it all together and turned it into, sure, Private Party interferes, but then Dark Order comes out to make the save. So I was very happy with the booking here. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the match was good. I thought at this point, and this is not at all a slight to either of the gentlemen involved, I thought that this was the point of the show where I was like, hey guys, it's starting to get late, and we probably need to get moving because there's some matches coming up that are still going to need some time. So between these past 2 matches, the Miro and Kip Sabian and Best Friends, and then this match, I was just like, we need to trim a little bit somewhere, and it just felt like things went a little long. But honestly, I enjoyed this very, very much, as I pretty much always do whenever Hangman's in the ring. And I thought Matt Hardy, for what it's worth, I thought Matt Hardy did a really good job here. He really brought it, honestly. So I was very pleased with the match, with the booking and the result. And again, it was just another success for this show, in my opinion. It just... the time frame is what started to kill it a little bit for me. But it was a lot of fun, I gotta admit. All
right, so have you watched BT today?
No.
Okay.
but so I had to do this for you and for the viewers. I made a very conscious effort to catch up because I was at least a few weeks behind, and now I'm only 2 episodes behind, I think. I haven't seen last week and I haven't seen this week, but okay. I'm getting closer.
All right, so on today's BTE, Hangman, well, first the Dark Order are just all talking. Hangman comes in and Alex Reynolds goes, hey. Oh, they're all talking. Well, first, actually, they're like, you're big money, Adam. They talk about, it's like, have you seen the figures yet? He's like, it's six figures. It's like mid six figures. They don't pay him that much. And then Reynolds is like, I bought you something. I bought you 16 barrels of whiskey. And he's like, holy crap. All right. And then Hangman's like, wait, how did you pay for that? And Alex admits that he found Hangman's wallet and he knew that Hangman was going to win all this money. So he put it on Hangman's credit card. And then John Silver admits that he bought like a bazillion condoms on his credit card, and then somebody else that they bought something else on Adam's credit card, and Evil Uno bought like a fruit bouquet for Adam on his own credit card. And then Hangman's like, guys, I just saved enough money to buy myself a new lawnmower, and I said I didn't want the money and just to have them give it away. So I'm going to have to go talk to an accountant now. Because I spent all of his money on whiskey, condoms, and a fruit bouquet.
Speaking of lawnmowers, did you see his lower third on the show?
Oh, I missed it.
It said decided on the Snapper 56-inch.
Yeah.
Which is like a type of riding lawnmower.
Yeah. He mentioned that in the media scrum as well, which was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just finish off the Dark Order segment. And then after Hangman left, they were also Silver was like, Anna, and they're like, Anna's not here. He's like, well, what am I supposed to yell? And they're like, well, you can yell my name. He's like, Uno! That doesn't work. And they're like, no woman can replace Anna. And then everybody looks over to the door and they're like, oh my god! And they pan over and it's Maki Itoh and she says, surprise, motherfuckers!
And great. Now they're just gonna absolutely just like be her Itoh order.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. And to Matt, Quen knocked on Matt's hotel door. He opens the door, and Matt is just holding a grape in his fingers, and he just like slowly puts it in his mouth to eat it. And they make it off like if Matt has fallen off the wagon, it's like eating grapes is falling off the wagon for Matt. It's kind of really funny. Yep. Like he's doing drugs by eating grapes. So both a private party are like really freaked out because Matt is eating grapes.
That's too funny.
All right, we move on to the Face of the Revolution ladder match. Cody Rhodes, Scorpio Sky, Lance Archer, Pentagon, Max Caster, and the to-be-announced entrance is Ethan Page from Impact Wrestling. This was one that was floated quite a lot and seemed to have the most credence, especially because his contract was up with Impact, so he kind of made the most sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I did hear this rumored online, and I think it's a smart move for pretty much everyone involved. I think Ethan Page is really a fantastic wrestler, great character, obviously all ego. I think it fits pretty well with the vibe that they have. I mean, if he was some sort of outlandish, crazy character gimmick, it might be different, but his gimmick just works so well for the grounded sports-based, brand or product, I should say, that AEW puts out. So I think this is a great fit, and honestly, he's a great wrestler. So it really made a lot of sense. It was one of those surprises that, again, it's like, it was a surprise, but you're also like, yeah, that makes sense.
Strangely enough, no one from Dark Order was in this match, but Jack Evans decided to run out and get involved anyways, which was kind of funny. So they brawl. Archer hits a bunch of people with a ladder. Jack Evans runs out with a boombox. Number 10 follows him out and gives him a spine buster on the stage. or comes out, hits a spine buster on the stage on Evan. Yeah, and then Ethan Page. Wait, what did I even mean to write right there? Yeah, Jack Evans. He gave it his spine buster to Evans. Ethan Page, Cody go up the ladder. They both end up falling down, though. Cody and Ethan shake hands, but Ethan kicks Cody right away, basically as soon as their hands touch. Caster hitting everybody with the boom box. People targeting Cody's busted up shoulder, which is a legit injury. Penta runs up a ladder that was leaning against the top rope as a ramp, does a dive to the outside. Archer gets put inside of a ladder. Ethan Page tries to drop Scorpio Sky on the ladder with just like a regular scoop slam, but came up way short, so they regrouped, and he gave Sky a razor's edge on the ladder with Archer sandwiched between it. This is one of those spots that it just took way too damn long, and Archer was just like waiting forever for this to happen. He could have done his taxes in the amount of time that he was waiting.
Archer was sitting in there for a while, crushed in between that ladder, because the scoop slam, I mean, just it didn't work. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anybody's fault. It was just kind of a weird miscommunication. But to be honest, the razor's edge onto the ladder that Archer was in looked really good. It was just kind of oh, that took a while, but we got there. I thought it was cool.
Penta hits a backstabber on Page, pulling him off of the ladder, which was pretty awesome. Cody hits a drop kick to Penta, knocking him off the ladder. A ladder is set up between the ring and the barricade. Penta hits Cody with the destroyer on the ladder. The ladder does not break. I don't think it was supposed to break, but this is basically Cody playing up that he's totally screwed up at this point, and he gets help to the back, and they basically hang out in the tunnel. He doesn't really want to leave, but a lot of officials are trying to keep him from rejoining the match. Scorpio Sky unceremoniously just pulls Caster off the ladder. Caster and Sky fight on a couple ladders. Archer runs up. Ethan Page joins them all, so we have all four of them up there. Archer gets knocked off. Page falls off the ladder. Caster gets kicked off. Sky almost gets the ring, but Penta stops him. Sky and Penta did something. I have no idea what they were going for. I think it was supposed to be a swinging neckbreaker, but Penta went way before Sky actually started the swinging neckbreaker, so Penta basically just threw himself off the ladder. Penta did throwing himself off the ladder with nothing twice in this match, so here with the missed what I think was supposed to be a swinging neckbreaker off the ladder. And then Sky gives Caster a body slam on a closed ladder and then hits a frog splash off the top for good measure with him still on the ladder. It looked like it sucked for both of them. Sky goes to the top rope. Archer hits a rising knee and Sky falls through a ladder that was set up between the ring and a barricade. Penta runs wild on the remaining three guys. Cody's still up in the tunnel. Page and Penta fight on the ladder. Cody makes his way back in and just starts swinging the weight belt. He got a couple of good whacks on a few people. Hits the crossroad on Page. Cody sets a ladder up in the corner. Archer runs up after him. Archer gives Cody a superplex off the ladder, which if you actually looked at where Archer's feet were, it was no higher than a regular superplex because I think his feet were actually lower than the top rope. A ladder is set up under the brass ring, which really looks like a giant hemorrhoid donut painted gold. Archer pushes over the ladder, hits a chokeslam on Page, hits a chokeslam on Cody, hits a chokeslam on Penta. Archer then hits a blackout on Caster on the ladder. Oh man, that had to have sucked. And then Page gives Archer a low blow, and then Page gives Archer a razor's edge. Jake the Snake had come in, grabs a short arm clothesline on Page, but then Penta super kicks Roberts. I was typing, so I didn't see the super kick. How bad was it?
Bro, it was so rough. It was missed him by probably almost a foot. It was so bad. And I mean, who can you really blame in that situation?
I mean, like, Penta does not want to lay it in stiff and knock out freaking a legend.
There's no way. Of all guys, they had to get Penta, and I'm just like, of course, he classically lays it in stiff, and he just whiffed him on purpose, I think. Yeah. And Jake still sold it, kind of, and it was awkward.
No one wants to be responsible for killing Jake the Snake.
Right.
Cody hits the ugliest Cody cutter. This is another Penta basically eliminated himself off the ladder because Cody was not going to get anywhere near him, and you just watch Penta basically force himself into the Cody cutter. It was god awful.
That one I don't know. I kind of thought that Cody was actually going to get there, and it felt like Penta jumped too far.
Either way, it did not work.
Nope, it didn't work.
Cody hits the Cody. He starts climbing. Penta hits Cody's shoulder with a chair. Sky comes in, hits Penta with a chair in the back and then in the ankle. And then Cody and Scorpio Sky climb up opposite sides. Sky yanks Cody's arm, and then Sky talks crap to Cody. Pie faces Cody off of the ladder and grabs the ring. Clearly, Sky is heel at this point. He was such a dick on commentary on Wednesday, and here he just completely disrespects Cody for a second time because he said "F Cody" on commentary on Wednesday, and then he just pie faced Cody and threw him off with and grabs the ring.
Yeah. Okay, so this match was absolutely a lot going on, and just covering it with you here now is like, man, there's so much that happened. But couple of highlights for me. Man, Cody and Penta with the destroyer on the ladder that didn't break. I was like, oh, that's gotta suck. And when Cody started going to the back, like, I knew it was a work, but I was still like, you know what? Fair. Like that looked like it was just absolutely awful. There was a moment earlier where the ladder was leaning up against the ropes, and Penta ran up it and flipped off like swan dive. And right behind him was Archer, and it looked like he was about to do the same spot. And I was like, no, it won't hold you. Don't do it. Like, I was like screaming at my TV, like, oh God, that'd be so bad. Thankfully it didn't happen. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, what else? There was just so much going on in this match. A little bit of car crash TV, but as I've mentioned to the viewers before, I don't mind a little bit of car crash. I definitely thought that this match was entertaining, if not perfectly executed. But I will also say, Scorpio Sky, man, when he came out, I was just like, that's my pick. I told my friend Matt, I said, I think that's what's going to happen here. Unless, depending on who the surprise entrant was. Because obviously I did predict the surprise entrance. With it being Ethan Page, I think it's 50-50. But I really enjoy Scorpio. And man, when he got to the top of that ladder, he, like you said, he pie-faced Cody, but he also kind of bent his arm, the shoulder that had been worked over the entire match. I think he grabbed his arm and bent it over the top of the ladder. And that was just like another reaffirming moment in my head. I was like, this guy is going full heel. And I like it. I'm on board with the direction.
Yeah, and it helps to finish off the SCU storyline eventually when SCU basically is dissolved. Probably in the next 3 to 6 months, SCU will be no more.
Yes, 100%. And wasn't it you that mentioned you thought that perhaps the retirement Daniels program will be with Scorpio Sky, not Kazarian?
Yes, because if Sky is turning heel, it would make sense, because I thought it was Kaz who was going to turn heel, and then Kaz was going to retire Daniels. But it would make even more sense if Sky went heel, because Sky is obviously younger and he's on his way up now. To take out Daniels would be a huge feather right there.
I am totally in agreement. After watching this match, I thought of you and I was like, you know what? I think Eric's got it right.
Oh man, there was something that you said when we were talking, and I was gonna I had something to say about it, and now I don't remember.
The destroyer on the ladder not breaking.
Oh yeah. Yes. Sparky our graphics guy, he was totally sold. Like, he thought Cody was legit screwed and injured.
Really?
They had him, yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like, it wasn't, I was almost positive it was not real. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? That looked rough. Like, I'm sure Cody right now is not feeling great. Like, there's no way he's just like, yeah, I'm great, guys. Like, I could totally understand it. I also want to mention one other thing, and I think I tweeted about it as well, but I'll say it again. This match subverted some of the tropes of a ladder match that WWE has come to teach us, whether we, know them obviously or, subconsciously. There's a couple tropes in WWE ladder matches we see often, one of which being that the person who first touches the item, such as the belt or the money in the bank or whatever, is not the winner. It's almost always not going to be the guy who wins it, who first gets his hand on it. Mm-hmm. And the first person to touch it in this match was Scorpio Sky, and he came away with the prize. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Another one is that oftentimes when you see someone go to the back, they, for an injury, they oftentimes come back to win the whole thing. So when Cody went to the back there, kind of to the tunnel, I said, okay, he's going to wait it out. Everyone else is going to do their high spots, and then he'll come back kind of refreshed and win. And that didn't happen either. So I was really happy to see AEW take a different approach, which, I mean, it's not really a different approach. It's just some tropes that I think these matches fall into often. And they didn't do either of them. So I was really happy.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this was probably an average ladder match. I don't think. Yeah, I wouldn't put it. It wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. It was good, and it was just kind of in the middle, I think. It just felt like a lot of things were off, and we just had some weird spots. Like they got lost. In some spots, and they couldn't improvise it well enough to make it look like they weren't lost in spots.
Right.
So it wasn't the greatest, but it was fine. Jay says she wants Scorpio to join with Sean Spears and FTR.
Ooh, okay. I can get behind that. Truthfully, that would be I would be in total agreement, and I would say that that's probably my favorite idea I've heard so far for that spot. But just before we got on recording here, I heard a rumor that Nick Aldis is in talks for that. And I could not be more thrilled, because that's some NWA, 80s level, Nick Aldis in that spot would be absolutely perfect for me. So that's my current favorite running theory. But Scorpio Sky, a close second.
I heard Miro floated after he breaks off from Kip as a potential with Tully's team, but I guess
I mentioned that on Wednesday. I think
that was you. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still on board with my own theory for sure. But the Nick Aldis thing I heard today just got me way too jazzed up.
The contract signee comes out. It is Christian Cage. He walks out, signs a paper, poses for a second, and heads out.
Yeah.
That was it.
There wasn't a lot going on with that, but I don't know. I wasn't mad about it. I was just like, this is cool. He came out. I thought his music was really neat. And that's all that had to happen.
I think it was his old Impact music.
I think it's a remix of his old Impact music.
Yeah,
I think it sounded updated, but it was familiar.
And we already talked about Christian, but like I said, I always thought he was the better of the two and always got the short straw from management, I guess, but it is what it is. So
anymore.
As long as he can still go, I am perfectly fine with this. It sounds like he is in great. I didn't see him. I haven't seen the Royal Rumble. Like I said, I haven't watched any WWE. The last WWE thing I watched was the Boneyard match. And before that was 3 years before that. So the Boneyard match is the only thing from WWE that I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years now. So
it's one of the cooler things that they've done recently. So, I mean, I won't fault you on that. But the Christian actually looked really good at the Rumble. If you get a second, I don't know if you've got WWE Network or anything, but if you can find it online or YouTube perhaps, he actually looked really good. And I wasn't 100% sure because I hadn't heard too much about Christian as of late. But when he came in and had some spots with Edge, obviously, man, they looked really good together. And Christian, obviously, specifically, apart from Edge now, he did really, really well. So I definitely think I don't know if he'll outwork everyone, but he'll outwork somebody.
We go on to the street fight, Ricky Starks and Brian Cage versus Sting and Darby Allin. This was awesome. This was so good.
Okay, before we get too deep, did this not just completely rule? I was so happy.
Like, for the level of cinematic matches, I'm putting this at number 1 because it was that good.
Really?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd have to do a deeper dive on some cinematic matches, but man, I thought this was awesome. I was so happy they decided to go cinematic, and even happier with the result of it. Like, not just the result, the winner and loser, but just how it all came out. Man, this was sick. We'll get to it, but man, there were some spots in this match that I was cringing at. I was excited for. I felt like a kid, honestly. This was fantastic.
So before it even starts here, let's talk about this. Basically, we can credit Darby Allin with just about everything in this. He was basically the director. He came up with the entire match, and then he directed all of the camera shots and everything. Like I've heard 90% of what was on here was because of Darby Allin doing all the technical stuff and all the setting up everything and all the directing and producing and all that stuff. He spent months, 2 months on this, and then was
wow.
all over it for the time that they were actually shooting it as well. So this is all Darby Allin.
That is so cool. I did not know that, and I'm not surprised, but I'm impressed. That's fantastic, and credit for where credit is due. If he really was the one behind the camera, so to speak, really directing what these shots were going to look like, he's got a real knack for it, because there were some really, really sick visuals.
So a little thing that was a little interesting in this was that they did live commentary over the top of the video. So we had Taz joining the commentary team, which was kind of funny because this was filmed in advance and they were playing it off like it had already happened, but Taz didn't know the outcome of it, which was kind of funny. So he doesn't hear back from his guys, which is kind of funny. So we start off, and Ricky Starks, he is in street clothes. He is walking across the top of he's on a parking garage roof and walking, and he gets into the car with Brian Cage is driving. They're driving a BMW i8, I believe it was, a BMW supercar, which is crazy expensive
my
car.
friend Matt. My friend Matt was sitting with me, and he had one of the funnier takes of the night. As soon as they get in the car, he goes, "That's nice of Tony Khan to let them borrow the car." I was like, "Yep, that's fair, because that's definitely not Brian Cage's car."
It's $150,000 car. It's actually an electric car.
Oh, it's really dope looking. I liked it.
Oh, actually, never mind. No, it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid supercar.
Oh, hybrid. Okay.
So they get into this badass car. They drive to this warehouse, and then we cut with Darby Allin. He is skateboarding, and Sting is just driving a Toyota Tacoma. Like an old beat up Toyota Tacoma.
I didn't put that on Twitter, but I had the same exact reaction as me and my friend Matt were watching. It was as soon as we zoomed out, and Sting's truck was like a mid-90s Tacoma. And I was like, Oh gosh, what is that?
So Darby is skating to the warehouse. Sting is driving, but they end up meeting Sting. Basically, Darby intersects Sting and grabs onto the tailgate. So we get the Back to the Future. He's grabbing onto the tailgate, exactly. Going behind it on the. They get to the warehouse. There's a bunch of people in masks all around the ring. Sting's face paint was half his normal face paint, and his other side was Darby's face paint, which I thought was a nice touch.
I thought so too.
It's a brawl. Cage beats up some of the masked guys. Darby gets run into the post on the outside. Basically, Cage and Darby fight their way into the warehouse while Sting and Ricky Starks are... Oh, I forgot to mention. They get into the warehouse and there's a wrestling ring in there.
Right. So it was at that moment also when we had all these intros of Cage and Starks in the car driving, and then, the skateboarding down the ramp or down the sidewalk or whatever, and with Sting, and they pull up at the wrestling ring. And at that moment I got online, and someone I was interacting with on Twitter, I'm not sure if it was Jay or one of our other fans or someone else, maybe it was just Alvarez for all I know, but I just saw a tweet that said, I would play this video game. I was like, yeah, I'm with you 100%.
So Darby and Cage basically start fighting back into the warehouse. Sting and Ricky stay in the ring. Stinger splash. I wrote excellent lighting and camera work here. They had like a wire camera setup that just like zipped from the ring through the warehouse down to Cage and Darby. Oh, I forgot the camera shot that followed Ricky Starks into the car, through the car, and then up into the sky with a downward shot. That was awesome too.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sting sends Ricky to the outside, and they start working their way towards where Cage and Darby went. Sting lays out Ricky. Actually, Ricky yells at Sting and says, "You're nothing without your bat." So Sting throws his bat, and there's some internal like windows in this warehouse. And he throws it up into like the third story window, or I guess the second to him. And he just throws it up there. He beats the crap out of Ricky, leaves him laying. And I thought this was funny. He starts walking towards where Darby and Cage went. And he takes like 6 steps and then stops, turns around to give Ricky one more shot before he goes. So he lays him out. Cage picks up Darby in a vertical suplex and then just carries them in that position up a flight of stairs, drops him on a trash can that was at the top of the stairs. They brawl into this open space. Sting hits Starks hits Sting with a pipe. And then a huge, it's bigger than a 55-gallon drum. This was, it was shaped like one, but it was much bigger, and it wasn't one of those weak, flimsy trash cans. It was a solid, solid drum. Cage accidentally hits Ricky with a lid. Darby gets on Cage's back while Sting is still fighting with Cage, with Darby riding his back. Sting sprays Cage in the face with a fire extinguisher to save him from power bombing Darby on the floor. They put Cage through a table. Darby climbs up a structural post and hits a coffin drop onto Starks. And then in runs Hobbs and Hook. And they beat up Allin. Cage takes out Sting. Cage and Hobbs throw Darby Allin through a giant window that was leaning up against the wall. So it was kind of just at an angle on the wall. He goes through it, and like the top part of it comes crashing down on him.
I was gonna say, did you see that part?
Yes.
He went through it, which first of all looked like horrible anyway. I'm like, oh god, this guy's dead. And then the whole thing like started sliding down the wall, and the wooden frame just whacks him in the head. Yeah. I was like, oh god, he's dead again.
And then let's see, thrown through the window. Hobbs, Cage, and Hook fight with Sting, and they start heading back towards down the stairs and towards the ring. Stark comes to, and he's just like a zombie walking. And then Darby Allin, he comes to, and he walks over to that opening where Sting had thrown his bat. And he throws the bat down to Sting, who is fighting with all the other guys. Sting breaks the bat over Brian Cage's back, and he looks at the stump, like, sadly, like, I've had this bat for 40 years, and I just broke it. So he picks up a shovel and whacks Brian Cage with it, and he basically throws Cage up onto a platform that is between this giant opening in the floor. Allin jumps out of that open space window, whatever, goes and hits Cage, goes through the platform, and they fall through this giant opening to the floor, down to the next story.
If I may note also, just before we get to the wrap up here, when we say the window, like, it's a warehouse, an open air warehouse. So, like, we're not talking about, like, your traditional second floor to first floor. We're still talking, like, probably 25, 30 feet high.
Yeah, it was
like,
high.
It was huge. Like, what would be, I think, in any other building, probably more like 2 to 3 stories. And he came flying down with this elbow drop and just crashed into, like, the pits of hell.
Yeah, so it's weird how this was set up. So there's this corridor that was just like an opening balcony type of area that just ran this entire length of this hallway. So you had, like, walkways on either side of this giant opening with railings that came up to about your chest, and they had this platform across it, and then it was open to the next floor down. So by the time Allin stopped moving, he probably had fallen 45 vertical feet by the time he was done.
Yes, 100%.
It was insane. So that is how Starks got. That's how Cage was taken out. Hook and Hobbs were taken out with the bat and the shovel from Sting. So it's just Sting and Starks. They make their way back to the ring. Starks hits a spear, attempts the first pin of the match for a 2 count. And then Sting just stands up and punches, just hits a straight right punch to the nose. Starks hits a nut shot. He picks up Sting for a power bomb, but Sting flips through it with a sunset flip. Sting blocks an elbow, hits a scorpion death drop, and gets the victory. This match was awesome.
Yeah, that's the understatement. I could not have been happier, honestly, with how this turned out. I think I made this comment probably on Wednesday, I think, regarding the Shaq match, and the same remains true here. This couldn't have been done better. And it's not that it was the best match I'd ever seen, though I'll say it was very, very good. But for the players involved, for the fact you've got Sting, who really you don't want taken too much, right? Like, you've got to creatively edit it. Like, this was the best thing they could have done, and it came out so fantastic. Sting literally looks like he's got his edge. Like, man, for all of the weird hype behind this, and not hype, I'm sorry, but the weird build, I should say, and the constant Sting on TV, like, they paid it off, man. This was so much fun. A couple of the highlights, obviously, Darby going through that huge window and then just taking a window frame to the head. The bat callback was so cool because there has been a running theme throughout this build of whether or not Sting needs this bat in order to, remain a threat. And they showed he didn't. He didn't even use it till the very end. He threw it up into that window, got it tossed back down, then completely broke it. So the first time he even uses it, it breaks. So he really doesn't need it to get the final pin, you know? But I thought that this was just so much fun. Obviously, dude, Brian Cage carrying Darby in that vertical suplex position up the stairs, that was just sick. Absolute. This guy's a monster, truthfully. But the other thing just the one weird thing, like pretty much the only negative from this entire match, why was Hobbs wearing a mask? Like,
Right?
we know it's you. Like, what is your problem? Like, we know exactly who it is. This dude runs in, and it's just this jacked, black guy with, tack gear on. And I'm like, who else do I know who is that huge?
Associated with some of these people.
Associated with Taz, right? And then he rips his mask off, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Hobbs. I was just like, but I mean, he looked really cool, but I was just like, you didn't need a mask, bro. Don't worry about it.
Probably even one of the worst spots to take was something as simple as Darby took a hip toss from Hook on the concrete.
Yes.
That was probably one of the most painful spots of the match because everything else looked relatively safe and they always had crash pads or they landed a little out of camera or they had something breaking their fall. That was the one spot where he's direct to the concrete and it was a hip toss to the concrete.
Right, absolutely. And you know what? I love this Young Lions approach. They made Hook give him a hip toss in a street fight with all this crazy weaponry and everything. They're like, nah, you're the young boy. You're just going to give him a hip toss.
So I thought this was great. And just the production value was that was just regular, something you would see on any other scripted TV show, action narrative show or movie. It was just so good.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I thought, again, everyone involved just did a fantastic job. The cool result, I don't want to say the right result because I think it could have gone either way, but Sting winning his first match back. And I mean, it was an absolute banger. So hats off to everyone involved.
We move on to the main event of the evening, and I'm just going to say this so far. We've gone through 8 matches, including the pre-show match. This pay-per-view was good.
Yes,
so
100%.
Before we even get to this match...
Not without its faults, but it was good. Yes. Definitely on the positive side, I'd give it a minus.
Yeah, this was a solid pay-per-view. But what happened at the end of the main event is what everybody's talking about, and that suddenly makes it an F minus. I'm not saying it makes it an F minus. I'm saying a lot of people are saying that was the crappiest pay-per-view ever. It's not even in the ballpark of crappy. It wasn't even on the side of crappy, and it was definitely not the worst pay-per-view ever. So before we get to the final match, let's just get that out of the way. All right, so we go to Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship in an exploding barbed wire death match. They give us a few of the stipulations that it's 3 sides are barbed wire. If you hit the barbed wire, explosions will go off. They say that the 4th side was left open for emergency purposes. Which I thought
that was actually a rational explanation, if you ask me. When they said that, I was like, oh, all right, sure. Doc Samson needs to come in here. He doesn't want to go through barbed wire.
Right. Or paramedics or firefighters or whatever.
Right.
So Moxley comes... he comes through that side door up in the stands, and as soon as he comes in, he takes a swig from a flask on his way down to the ring. There's plunder all around the ring, so there's barbed wire wrapped around all the ropes on 3 sides. All the 3 sides that are not the stage, there is set up some pieces of plywood with coils of barbed wire all over them. There's just plunder everywhere on the outside of the stage, trash can, baseball bat, barbed wire wrapped baseball bat, a barbed wire wrapped chair, whole bunch of stuff. Kenny Omega comes out and he's dressed in street clothes. Moxley usually is in street clothes pretty much anyways. He wrestles in pants. So, but Omega comes out and he's in jeans. He has his knee pads over his jeans, which I thought was a funny touch with his his really nice Omega knee pads as well, not like some crappy beat up ones, which I think would have been a nice touch if he had some like crappy beat up black ones. But
yeah, like welder knee pads or something.
So this match was actually super psychological match. Like, this was a wrestling match that happened to have exploding barbed wire instead of an exploding barbed wire match that happened to have wrestling.
That's 100% true.
So they lock up right at the beginning and they start pushing each other towards the barbed wire, and we get tons of teases. They throw a ton of strikes, a ton more teases. They throw more strikes. Moxley clotheslines Omega out of the ring on the side without barbed wire out onto the stage. So Moxley goes out, throws all the plunder basically in the ring. They fight on the stage a little bit. Moxley has a barbed wire wrapped baseball bat. We see a leg sweep on the stage. Omega gets hit with a kendo stick. They go back to the ring. Omega tosses powder in the eyes of Moxley. Moxley has the barbed wire baseball bat. He's just swinging wild. Were you watching Bryce?
Yeah, Bryce is trying to get out of the way.
Actually, I should say Bryce is dressed head to toe in like you would see
like fire protective gear.
Yeah, like fire protective gear, but like more you would see like in a chemical spill.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically the full jumpsuit onesie with the hood and a face shield, plastic see-through face shield. He is like ducking. He is like thinking he's gonna get whacked with the baseball bat because Moxley is just swinging wildly, and Bryce is stuck between Moxley. And right behind him is a board covered in barbed wire. So he's like stuck between Moxley swinging a bat and a barbed wire board behind him. Omega throws Moxley into the side of barbed wire. We get our first explosion. We get a kick out at 2. Omega hit so Omega set up a trash can upside down and then hit a knee breaker on the top of the trash can, which was now the bottom of the trash can.
That looked rough, man.
Because there's no give in that direction. The trash can is meant to withhold that placement.
Right.
God, so it went nowhere. That had to have sucked. Omega throws Moxley... Omega puts on a figure 4. He starts working over the leg Kotaro Crusher on the trash can. Moxley is bleeding from the head after the Kotaro Crusher. Moxley uses he leans back and he grabs hold of the barbed wire chair and he just starts raking it across Omega's leg to get out of the figure 4. Moxley sent into the barbed wire board in the corner. Kenny looks like he's gonna he runs towards the corner. He's like, oh, that's probably not a good idea. So he kind of scoots just to the right of the corner onto the side with no barbed wire. He does a second rope moonsault. Omega uses a kendo stick a bunch. Omega is pushed into the barbed wire twice and the explosions go off twice. Suplex by Moxley, pump handle suplex from Moxley into the barbed wire board in the corner. Omega avoids a paradigm shift in the ring, but gets sidewalk slammed onto the barbed wire chair. Moxley wraps his arm in barbed wire and he's going to use it as a lariat. Omega ducks it and hits a couple of Snapdragons V-trigger. Mox fires back with a lariat with his other arm. Moxley and Omega go into one of the barbed wire sides at the same time. This causes Omega to basically say that, oh, I've been blinded. I got exploded in my eyes. So they get a bottle of water. He's pouring water all over his face. They roll under the barbed wire. and out onto the apron. They fight on the outside. Moxley blocks a hip toss to the floor, and then Moxley gives Omega a Death Rider to the floor, or a paradigm shift if you're in AEW, I guess. Paradigm shift to the floor on the barbed wire board. Big explosion, though the explosion was kind of like off to the side a little bit. That was a little weak. Moxley then pulls a massive length of wire off the board and brings it into the ring. He's got like a giant coil of it. It's probably about 1.5 feet in diameter, and then he's probably got, I don't know, 20 wraps of it. So he brings that in. Moxley hits a pile driver, and then this loud countdown sound starts, and they're like, oh, it's 10 minutes to go. Oh, and part of the rules were at 30 minutes it's all blowing up regardless if the match is over or not.
That's a very important part for us to mention.
Yes.
That they have heavily promoted, guys, that at 30 minutes the entire thing is going to blow up.
Yes.
Like big time blow up.
So we're at the 10-minute to go mark. Omega hits a low blow power bomb with a high stack for a 2 count. Omega hits a couple of V triggers. Then he hits a one-winged angel, and nobody's kicked out of the one-winged angel except Kota Ibushi that one time. But Moxley isn't going to kick out of it, but he does have enough strength to throw his foot into the barbed wire to cause it to explode, which causes Moxley, to get explosions in his face and release the pin. And then the Good Brothers run out, and Moxley has the barbed wire baseball bat. Good Brothers run out. He takes both of them out with the baseball bat. Omega hits Moxley with an exploding barbed wire baseball bat. Which,
by the way, was probably, from a viewer's perspective, that was the most savage spot in this match.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was sick. Like, the Death Rider off the stage into the barbed wire, like, the barbed wire part looked cool, but the explosion was This explosion was the best explosion all night. Spoiler alert. And it was a barbed wire bat, and he took it to the face. Like, I don't know how quickly he got his arm.
It was in the chest.
Oh, was it in the chest?
I saw there was another angle of it on BTE that came from Brandon Cutler's footage, and he clearly got it in the chest. And it actually...
But even still, the explosion went off, like, right there in front of him.
Yeah, it actually went off... After it hit him, and then the backswing started, and it exploded when the bat had already been backed up about 6 inches. But still, it looked awesome on TV. Even in that angle, it looked cool.
From the hard cam angle, it looked awesome.
Yeah.
It looked like this was blowing up in Moxley's face.
Moxley kicks out of that after that. Good Brothers, though, set up a chair in the middle of the ring, help Omega get Moxley up, and he hits the one-wing angel through the open chair, and Omega gets the victory. Commentary says, oh crap, we can't disarm the bombs. They're gonna still go off. So Good Brothers and Omega are just beating the crap out of Moxley. They handcuff Moxley, and then the Good Brothers beat him up, and then up on the video screen, a countdown from the 1 minute mark starts, and Omega and Good Brothers like, we're getting the hell out of here. Moxley is handcuffed and dead, and just like dead to the world in the middle of the ring. And out from the heel side tunnel, Eddie Kingston comes out, and Butcher and Blade and Bunny are trying to grab him. They're grabbing his shirt, trying to pull him back. There's like 20 seconds left. He just pushes them off. He jumps into the ring. He's trying to get Moxley out of the ring. He looks up at the clock, realizes that there's no time left, and like a soldier in war, he jumps on Moxley, covers Jon Moxley with his own body, and then the worst pyro ever goes off at the worst camera angle ever. And basically, Kingston plays it off like he is dead, and he shielded his frenemy, I guess. I never thought I'd actually use that word in some sort of legit fashion. He's dead. Some officials come out. They're trying to get him to come to. Aubrey has a bottle of water that she's trying to give him. And then they go off the air. All
right. Let me tell you one thing. Let me give you my perspective on this real quick.
Which part? On the absolute ending or the ending of the match?
On the ending.
All right. Well, let's cover the match up through the one-winged angel.
Sure. The match was sweet. And there again is, if this is your cup of tea, then you loved it. If it's not your cup of tea, I hope you were able to see the point that Eric made earlier, which I think is very well said. This was not a death match that happened to feature some wrestling and some holds. This was just a wrestling match with pure straight up psychology, where the ropes happened to be made of barbed wire, and they were really trying their best for a long time to avoid it. The opening moments of this match were incredible. There were some very near, close calls, honestly, to, one wrestler or the other almost accidentally running into the wires. There were some, test of strength and all this classic wrestling stuff as they tried to drive each other into barbed wire. And the first spot where anyone actually hit any barbed wire probably didn't come till 4 or 5 minutes in. And it really heightened your excitement and the danger level, because these guys are doing their best to avoid it. They're not just jumping into barbed wire straight off the bat. So it really felt legit. And again, as I mentioned earlier, also felt very 80s. And I really, really loved it. The entire match through the 1, 2, 3 was a ton of fun. Again, not my personal cup of tea all the time, but I do also think it wasn't over the top. Like, I have trouble watching death matches modern day with light tubes and severed paper cuts and all this stuff. I can't do it. It's too much.
Barbecue skewers to the forehead.
Yeah, exactly. This was not CZW. This was like Terry Funk, Mankind, Onita. This was that style deathmatch. And sure, there was blood on the faces and stuff.
And it wasn't even that bad.
But no, it was not as bad as it could have been. And it was much more a tribute to a bygone era than it was any sort of clickbait for YouTube. It was really almost sweet in a way. It was really, really fun to watch. The run-in at the end, if any match tonight or last night was going to have a kind of a schmaz finish, I really wished it wasn't this one. But the Good Brothers coming in was almost inevitable. Mm-hmm. And of course, they provided my favorite spot of the match, which was what looked to be an explosion right in Moxley's face. So I was totally on board with that. And the finish was totally fine. I also loved the One Wing Angel spot where he got his foot up on the wire and caused an explosion. I thought that was very creative, and it's not a kick out of the One Wing Angel, but it's definitely the first person you've seen just not completely get put away with it.
Okada got his foot on the ropes in their G1 match, I believe.
Right. I'm sorry. I meant in AEW.
Yeah, in AEW, nobody's kicked out of it.
But that said, that puts Moxley on Okada's level, so that's fine with me. Totally good with that. So through the 1, 2, 3, this was great.
Yeah. So I think one of the things I don't know if I'll get hate for this or not. I believe a lot of the barbed wire was the gimmicked barbed wire that similar to what they used for their Lights Out match last year, or I guess almost 2 years ago now. Because it definitely was not cutting them up a ton. Moxley's back was not bleeding like crazy, like I figured he would after going through the barbed wire board plus after the Death Rider, because he landed all on the barbed wire. Kenny Omega rolled off of it. For the most part, I believe they used the gimmicked barbed wire that wasn't like true barbed wire. So I'm fine with that. That's perfectly fine because it makes the visual, but obviously we don't get these accidents where somebody slices a 6-inch gash in their back or something and have to have like stitches. So perfectly fine with that. So that was good. I thought the explosions on the ring ropes were great. The explosion on the floor was not as great. I mean, we're talking about he took a paradigm shift / Death Rider, whatever you want to call it, off the apron to the floor. Any other day, that would be your typical holy shit chant type of move. Here, even if you took out the explosion, it would have been even more so, because then it would have been, off the apron to the floor, arm to barbed wire. But that puff of smoke just kind of like blew it. It's like, that wasn't as good as what was on at least on the ropes.
Yeah, agreed. It definitely took away from that spot a little bit, unfortunately.
All right, so let's go to post pin.
Okay, here's my little rant. Post pin, only negative here, aside from the obvious, was that they were not quite as close, I don't think, to the countdown as they thought they were. So after the pin, they really just beat up Moxley for a while. They being, Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers. Mm-hmm. They really took it to him for a while, and I think they were in there probably almost 2 minutes post pin, just kind of beat him up and grinding. They ground the baseball bat into his head with the barbed wire wrapped around it. So there was just, it was a little long.
I have to say, because I was like, okay, who's going to come out to save Moxley from this beatdown? Because I'm like, okay, where's Death Triangle? Pac has an issue with Kenny Omega, and the Good Brothers beat the shit out of Pentagon a month and a half ago, and Phoenix and Moxley are buddies.
Right.
Where the hell were they? So that was like the biggest, that's what one of the biggest problems was, because it was so long of a beating, somebody had to come out before the possibility of Moxley getting blown up.
Right, exactly. So that part was a little long, but I mean, when the countdown started, it was pretty cool. I was like, all right, I'm still feeling this. I'm feeling it, right? And they noticed countdown, and they're like, Don Callis, I think, was on commentary, and he's screaming, you got to get out of there. So they handcuff Moxley so he can't get out, right? So now I'm like, man, this is awesome. Like, they're dastardly. What horrible people. And they handcuff Mox, and the countdown's going on. I'm like, they're just going to leave this guy for dead. All right, cool. And now in my head, not knowing what the explosion's going to look like, I'm like, this is them writing Moxley off TV for however long they need to, whether he's going to long-term paternity leave or whether he's going to Japan or whatever's happening. This is them just completely killing Moxley. And then the countdown's going on, and Eddie runs out from the heel tunnel. And I have not had, I don't know about you, but I have not had an emotional reaction to wrestling in a while. Not an emotional, I mean, I guess hype and excitement is an emotion, but like almost like a genuine like sadness / wow. This was a wow moment for me. And when Eddie came out and he's trying to be held back because they know what he's trying to do, like it was a scene from a movie for me. And in this moment, I was like, this is the best show I've seen in a long time. This is incredible ending, because I know where they're going with it. So, Eddie comes out there. He's trying to get Moxley to move. Moxley's selling death, and he's handcuffed. He won't move. He looks back at the countdown. The countdown's doing 4, 5, 4. Like, it's getting down there. And Eddie covers him with his body. And, dude, like, between you and me, it was almost like a teardrop. I was just like, that's incredible. What an amazing storytelling moment. And then sparklers started out of the side of the ring. And I was like, That is so disappointing because that was one of my favorite, truly, one of my favorite moments I've seen from AEW in their entire history. I thought that was such a good idea. The fact he even ran in from the heel tunnel, the fact that they've played up their intense rivalry, but also their former friendship, and now he completely face turns. It's one of my favorite baby face turns I've seen, which, I mean, I think it is. We'll see on Wednesday, but I think this is a clear baby face turn. It's probably one of my favorite baby face turns I've ever seen. And then this just completely non-explosion happens. And I was so sad for the guys involved because Eddie had his head down and he couldn't tell what had happened. I don't know if the ring was supposed to fall apart, but short of the ring completely collapsing being the plan, Eddie had to think that the plan went, the right way. Right. So he did exactly what he probably should have, unless Bryce came in and called an audible, essentially, because he's probably not wearing an earpiece. He did exactly what he should have. They both sold it like they were dead. In that moment, what should have happened, in my opinion, Bryce come back running into the ring and be like, hey, you're okay. You know what I mean? And then Eddie's like, oh, you're okay. Because either way, Eddie's a hero, right? Yeah. Even if the ring doesn't explode, Eddie's already a hero. He came and sacrificed himself. And just because he doesn't die doesn't mean the intent of what he did isn't any less wow. Like, it's still a great moment. But now he looks stupid.
Yeah, so there's all types of ways that this, with the pyro that happened, there are plenty of good ways to continue. There would have been, the pyro goes off, it's nothing, and then after it goes off, Eddie Kingston lifts his head up and looks around and realizes that nothing happened. So we have that, which would have been
honestly perfect. Do you remember? I don't know if you're a fan of the MCU movies, but do you remember the original Captain America?
No, I haven't seen it.
Steve. Okay, cool. So there's a moment in the original Captain America film where they're talking about who should be Captain America. Essentially, the military soldiers. It's back in the 40s. The generals there are saying who should be the candidate for the program, and Steve Rogers is the skinniest, smallest of them all. And one of the generals says, well, let's give it a try. So he takes a grenade and throws it out into the middle of the clearing where all the soldiers are. And everyone scatters except for Steve Rogers, who throws himself onto the grenade. But the grenade is a training grenade, so nothing happens. So then they all kind of look around, and Steve Rogers picks his head up and goes, well, was this a test? And it's kind of like this moment of, everyone else had the thought to run away, but he covered the grenade and, tries to save everyone's life, but nothing happens. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of that very much, where Eddie still can pick his head up and be like, oh, and now it's almost like he's been outed as a hero. You know what I mean? This tough guy persona, it's all a joke. And he could pick his head up and almost be embarrassed and be like, oh, well, now I've really shown my true colors, which is I'm a loyal friend.
Right. And then that would have been fine. And to add to it, you could have had Don Callis or Kenny on the microphone laughing at him because, Kenny's the one who supposedly put together all the things, and he purposely made it so Kenny, if Kenny was laid out at the 30-minute mark, he didn't want to die, so of course he wasn't going to blow up the ring. So
of course.
So it would have made sense if Don and or Kenny got on the mic to make fun of either Moxley and or Eddie for thinking that it was going to blow and it was just all a big joke, or something like that. Or let's go down the path of it was supposed to be something bigger was supposed to happen, and something technical in real life. It was supposed to be bigger, and something technical happened that caused it not to be big. The audible that they could have called was still without Kingston doing that part, was immediately have Kenny and Dawn basically do the same thing, something to cover that they're responsible for it not happening because for whatever reason. But sans that, if we go off
right, and also, to be fair, Kenny is a great champ, but it doesn't mean he can't look stupid from time to time.
Right.
So you could have them surprised and then just have Eddie grab the mic even and say exactly what Moxley said after, because Moxley's still selling the fact that he's basically dead.
Right.
You have Eddie pick it up and be like, was that it? You know what I mean? And then like have Kenny look all embarrassed because it didn't work.
Yeah, before going off the air. So
exactly, before going off the air. Right. But unfortunately, the worst thing happened, which was Eddie selling it like it was a nuke.
Right. So going forward with what happened and how can they clean it up given what happened, and we just have to deal with how it went. Basically, I think ways they can easily get out of it. One, they've already started down the path of blaming it on Kenny being a horrible bomb maker, which is fine. Unfortunately, this did not happen on the show. John Moxley, after the show, they immediately put it up on Twitter and all this stuff. John Moxley said, well, Kenny Omega is a tough son of a bitch, but he can't make bombs for shit. So that was, one, they should have had that on the show before they cut off. Yes. That would have been good. They could have cut off right there. John Moxley continued on for about another 2.5 minutes talking to the crowd, which was perfectly fine. He was just, sending the crowd home happy, which was fine. We wouldn't need to have seen that. So we have that already laid, that Kenny is a horrible bomb maker. We have Kingston has sold it. So what can we do there? I think the easiest way to go is give the mic to Kingston first thing on Wednesday and somehow cover along the lines of that the situation was so stressful he passed out. Something along that line, because I think that could easily happen to people. That happens to people. So. What?
In my opinion, I said I think that's still your worst out. In my opinion, I don't think that's consistent with his character. Unless, hey, full babyface, just say like I was really stressed out. Like I guess that's fair. But like right now, you're in a really awkward situation where you have to explain everything, and if you explain, hey, these guys are bad at building bombs and it was not supposed to look like that, they expected something more that didn't happen, then you're stuck with Eddie. But if you want to say that's what it was supposed to look like Eddie either looks dumb or he looks like, I don't know. It's just such a weird situation, unfortunately, for the way it unfolded. It's just a very unfortunate situation. And I know they'll try to explain it away the best they can. And I have full faith and trust in them that they can tell the story, but I no longer have any trust in their production department.
No, definitely not on that end. So I am very curious to see. If anybody can salvage it, it's Eddie Kingston. Yes. So I am curious what they come up with and how they scramble to fix this on Wednesday. I just felt so bad for the guys at the end. We have this great pay-per-view through the pin, through the -1 second from the explosion.
Yep.
was a above average show. And then the last 5 minutes of airtime just kind of deflated the whole thing. It went out with a fizzle. That's how it goes sometime. Unfortunately, they did not have a backup plan. I'm hoping that they might learn their lesson here. If we're going to try to do special effects, let's have at least backup plan B and C so we can jump on it right away if plan A does not go as planned.
Right.
When we're dealing with special effects and stuff like that.
Especially with special effects and stuff that, it's a good point I heard raised by Dave Meltzer earlier. When you're dealing with an explosion, you don't want to do the explosion twice. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, it's expensive and probably very dangerous in a sense. So like, you want to make sure you get it right on the first try. But there should have or I can't even speak about exactly what would be required. But in some way, somehow, you need to guarantee that this is going to work. Like, even if it does mean testing it when no one else is in the arena, like, you just got to spend that money or do that testing, take that time, whatever's required, because you can't promise for, you know, all these weeks and then 3 hours worth of pay-per-view that 30 minutes into that match, something's going to explode and then it's the equivalent of fireworks.
Yeah, and really, I think there was a couple things that compacted it. One, the explosion wasn't up to snuff, but two, they used the absolute worst camera angle to cover it. And three, they had the lights fully on. If they had turned the lights off and had changed the camera angle, then it could have worked. Because I saw a picture of somebody took in the stands, and they were basically, so you have the if you're looking hard camera, the ring post on the right hand side, they were looking across the ring diagonally from, so if they're looking straight ahead, they see the post, and right behind it would be the far post. They took a picture there. The entire ring was blocked by the explosion and smoke from their point of view. So their point of view was probably really good. So if the camera angle from the live shot was right there, it would have worked fine.
Yeah, and actually, your idea about the lights is a great idea because that's counting down anyway. So have the lights dim when the countdown starts, and then when it hits 0, basically go to black. Only allow some of the peripheral lighting on the stage and stuff to stay up, and that would look so sick with the smoke. And if it's dark, then you actually see the fire and the explosion a bit better. And hey, maybe it looks convincing. But the way it was shot and produced was just very, very bad.
Yeah, like the biggest thing was the camera angle. If they just changed the camera angle, what happened could have worked. But they just used, I don't even know what camera it was that I think were they using the jib camera on the hard camera side? So it was like way above the ring looking down into the ring, which was the absolute worst spot for the camera to be.
Right.
So I think that was the biggest thing. But yeah, again, they should have tested this stuff. They should have figured out what the right camera angle was. So it might have still looked kind of crappy to the people in the stands, but on TV it would have looked way better.
Right.
It's one of those things.
I don't think we can overstate it, though. I mean, I just think they could have done better, and I think this is a lesson moving forward. They'll figure it out, I'm sure, but not to undermine, because I think a lot of people are going to come away with the bad taste in their mouth. But I mean, if I'm just the one rational person that everyone is listening to, which I know no one's listening, but I'll throw it out there and say, please give them some leniency, because this really was a very, very good show. And I know I said I would have given it an A-, but when Kingston came out, man, that's A for me. That's great storytelling. And it was a special effects failure, not a thing about the booking or even really the matches. I know we talked about some going long and this and that, but really the booking and the in-ring for this show was very good. Very good, if not great. So cut them some slack, guys.
Yeah, some people are just freaking out. I don't know why. They're like, oh, this is the end of AEW. It's like, like you said, it was a special effect blunder. Had nothing to do with the booking or the storytelling. It was just the special effect all the way. That just didn't work correctly. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's live TV. It's live theater with live special effects. It's hard to do, and very few people do it. I mean, it's just not something you see. This is why, TV shows are not, live. So let's go down just quickly. I believe I might have won the choices here. So both of us had to be determined on the ladder match, so we were both wrong on that one. So that's a 0. You had Miro and Kip Sabian. I had Chucky T. So that's a +1 for you. We both had Santana and Ortiz. I had Hangman Page, so we're back to 0. I had Shida, so +1 to me, and then we both had Sting, Darby, MJF, Jericho, both wrong on that. And we both had Omega, so I won by 1.
Yes, you did.
But I think as a whole, we sucked.
I was about to say, I give you credit, but also I think both of us kind of tanked a little.
Because we were both wrong on MJF Jericho. We were both wrong on TBA. We were both wrong on Santana and Ortiz.
It was that stupid Jericho and Santana and Ortiz plot we had worked out for ourselves. Yeah. It could have been better if we didn't do that, but we committed.
Yeah, it's all right. And then already announced for Wednesday is that 6-woman tag match that we talked about. Thunder Rosa, Shida, and Rhio versus Britt Baker, Rebel, but she's going to get out of it due to Doctor's No, and Nyla Rose. So, Maki Itoh. Not yeah. Nyla Rose, Maki Itoh. Wait, who the hell came out? Now I don't know who's in that match.
It's Riho, Shida, and
Rhio, not Riho.
Rhio. Sorry, Rhio, Shida,
and Thunder Rosa. But
Thunder Rosa?
Who's it verse? I'm guessing it's going to be Maki Itoh, Britt, and Nyla.
Yes, that's correct.
Even though Rebel is supposed to be in that match, she's going to get out of it, and it's going to be somebody else.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the other match is Matt Jackson versus Phoenix, 1-on-1. Yep. So Jay is saying Britt, Maki, and Nyla, but I think Rebel was supposed to be in it. Rebel was or is going to be replaced by Nyla.
100%.
Yep.
All right. Also, the very, very last thing, I forgot. It's too late. I was about to say something interesting. I forget. Okay. We'll move on.
Interesting about the women, or interesting about the pay-per-view? Or interesting about Matt versus Phoenix?
No, something about the pay-per-view. Oh, I remember. Just another thought. Just one other possibility, and this would be completely awesome. They could just get away with the whole Eddie thing, because everyone knows it was a dud, right? Like, there's not a single person watching who's like, that's exactly how it was supposed to look. Like, almost everyone who watches AEW, in my opinion, are probably in the know, right? Like, no one's really not in the know on wrestling anymore. So everyone knows it was just an innocent mistake. That's what happens. He sells it like he's supposed to, and it doesn't work. So they just get him out there and have someone step to him, have someone mouth off to him, and just have pure old school Eddie come out for a second and be like, what, you got questions? Like, step to me. Like, tell me I'm stupid. You know what I mean? And just have that person like back down and never speak about it again. You could do that too. Just have someone like make fun of him, and then he just clocks him or something, spinning back this in the face, and be like, don't talk to me or my family ever again. And then I'd be like, you know what? That's fine. Like, you can explain it away, because truthfully, like, yeah, we all want to know, like, how are they going to explain it away? But everyone knows it was just an unfortunate situation.
Right. So I guess in your situation, the way to explain it away is to not explain it at all, and just through Eddie not explaining himself and just beating the crap out of anybody who questions him.
Correct.
That works. We can go with that. All right. My cat wants out of my office. He's been in here for 3 hours, so I guess he wants out. Anything before we wrap it up? I think we're done.
No, sir. I'm toast.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the That's Wrestling podcast. We do this show live over on Twitch and on YouTube. Hey, I think we made it through on YouTube in one shot, and they didn't take us down, but I also had to change the thumbnail because they flagged it as being nudity for whatever reason. I have no idea why. Anyways, if you're listening to this, I already said that. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Twitch, we have a podcast. You can snag it on all your favorite podcast apps or at that'swrestling.com. At That's Wrestling 1 with the number 1 on Twitter is where you can find us. Comments, question, feedback. You can either leave it on the YouTube video or send me an email, eric@that'swrestling.com, or contact us through Twitter. There is a Discord you can come hang out with. Link is in the show notes. Leave your review over at your favorite podcast app of choice. And for Caleb Johnson, my name is Eric LaRoche, and you've been watching and listening to that's wrestling. See you later, guys. And my mouse is